And you made a point about trying to understand where you're coming from. Why was that important?
Evans, the lessons of economic history must never be forgotten. If you do, you risk repeating it. Ghana went through its worst form of crisis, economic crisis, in 2022. We've been to IMF programs for 17 times. But in fact, the 17th one was a different ball game. It was the only IMF program that we went in a form of an ambulance. We went straight to the intensive care unit, in the sense that at the time we were going to the IMF program, Ghana's debt has become unsustainable. And the Articles of Association clearly, for members of the IMF, clearly states that the IMF will not lend into an unsustainable debt situation. And so the only way that they will admit you, even though you are a member, is when you make your debt sustainable. Because when they lend to you, you have to be able to pay. So that crisis was a special crisis. It was public debt-induced crisis. And as a result, government had to default on the payment of a debt. We had to go through very painful and crude haircut. Businesses lost their working capital, currency depreciated, inflation reached 50-something%. And clearly, in the process, no one was spared. Even the pensioner was not spared. And so the question is, now we are back, we have recovered. And today I made a point that, hey, we have traveled this road before. Ghana has gone through crisis. In fact, that crisis, the last one, was an exceptional crisis. We've gone through crisis. We have recovered before. We have celebrated before. But unfortunately, we often relapse. We go back to where we have been.
You made a point, we relax.
We relax.
And then we relapse.
And relapse. Because that is the Ghana that I know. Unfortunately, that cannot define our country. And it is the reason why this country sees boom and bust. This country has never gone through more than 5 years of straight economic stability before. It's as a result of that.
And you were very clear on the reasons.
I needed to bring back
reckless spending.
Yes, reckless spending.
You said that choice.
And then choices about excessive and binge borrowing. Okay. I mean, every country will have to borrow one way or the other for cash flow management, for budget deficit financing, and all. But when the borrowing becomes excessive, and it's like binge drinking, that you always go out there to borrow and spend, go to the capital market to borrow, only for you to use it on consumption. When the time comes for you to settle that debt, you'll be found wanting. Exactly what happened.
And then you said,
and lack of accountability. And most importantly, failure to level with the people of Ghana about the true state of the economy.
You're saying that they were lying to us?
You see, when the country got to a situation where we needed to go to the IMF, they said to us that we are not going to IMF, and that everything was okay, and that if you are to say that you are going to IMF, Ghana at the time was a proud country, we won't go to IMF no matter what. It is your responsibility as Minister of Finance to look straight and tell the people of Ghana the true state of the Ghanaian economy and call for support. And as a result, with the backing of the country, we could have fixed the problem. And let me tell you, the crisis, I saw it coming those days when I was the ranking member. I saw it coming in 2020, even before the elections. Post-election 2021, my view was they needed to go to IMF at the time. In fact, at the time, Ghana's debt at the time was sustainable in 2021. So if they had gone to IMF earlier than 2022 when they did the announcement, maybe we would have avoided that.
But that was what you're not factoring in what happened after 2021, which is COVID, which was a monumental crisis, pandemic that the world had not faced before. And so that's accounted for the spending, and that accounted for the borrowing.
You see, the truth is that COVID did not only affected Ghana. It affected the world. It affected all of us. Why is it that countries like like Cote d'Ivoire, Nigeria, and all other countries around us did not go through the same economic crisis? Why is it that countries that even saw the worst form of COVID did not spend the way they did? Why? There was one outlier. The outlier was that in the case of Ghana, there was a 2020 elections. So they spent on the back of 2020 elections, and we saw deficit at double numbers, 11% of fiscal deficit. It's unheard of. And that was the beginning of the crisis. And so I said, 2021, I knew this day was going to come. And obviously, I needed to recall for the people of Ghana to appreciate where we are coming from, so that together, you and I will be able to preserve the gains we have made and to hold every government to account. Every government, including the government of today, to account, to make sure that the fiscal rules we have written into law are protected.
And then you tell us what has happened in 1.5 years, the progress we've seen in some of the numbers. We'll look at that. But then you respond to a criticism that has been leveled against you and the NDC administration, which is that the positive indicators you're looking at currently is not because of any deliberate policy interventions. You disputed that today, and you say to us that there are 3 main transformational policy reforms that has led to these positive numbers. The first one, it says fiscal correction. What is that?
So, first, when we took office, it was immediately clear to us that the new order, the old model of economic management has failed, and that Ghana does not only need structural adjustment, we need transformational change. And so we were very much of the view that we needed to put together a comprehensive and a menu of policies to respond to the situation we had met. The option would have been that, hey, new government, go business as usual. But I knew if we had gone through that way, we would have crashed by now. And so I decided together with the government that we need to implement the following policies. And so the first one was fiscal correctness.
What is that?
And fiscal correctness was the government of the day at the time has lost control of the fiscal. And so the first thing was, 1, we needed to take full control of public finances. And so we introduced the commitment authorization. And it was obvious that we needed to restrain ministries, departments, and agencies, SOEs, and all covered entities.
Commitment authorization, I've heard that money the right a lot. What does it mean in reality? Okay. So if I'm a minister and I want to spend,
yes,
what do I do?
So if you're a minister, you want to spend, you have a budget. So in the course of the budget, you need to apply for commitment authorization to commit the state within your budget, not outside your budget.
Okay.
In the past, anyone, not only ministries, departments, and agencies, even SOEs can live above their means.
You mentioned today that you have brought them into that.
Of course, they had to. Because, the interesting thing was that the last 10 years, state-owned enterprises has contributed about 3% of government debt every year. Because they engage in contingent liabilities, because we are the shareholders. They engage in liabilities spent above their means, sign any form of contract even though they don't have the money, or sometimes they fail to honor those obligations. And then eventually, the state had to take responsibility and pay for it. And we've seen clearly that in the last 10 years, 3% of GDP every year. Calculate 3% of GDP in the last 10 years. My brother, even capital expenditure is not equivalent to 3% of GDP every year. And so under the previous administration, we did not see capital expenditure equivalent to 3% of GDP. And so clearly our debt actually increased. We piled on sustainable debt without the bridges, without the roads, without the key infrastructure. And look at Ghana today. Our infrastructure is extremely weak, our particular road infrastructure. We are logged in everywhere. So this does not depict a country that had gone through debt restructuring as a result of excessive borrowing. Because I have seen countries that have gone through debt restructuring. I've seen a country like Zambia, they went through debt restructuring. But you can point to the infrastructure that they borrowed for. But in the case of Ghana, tell me one infrastructure that was completed under the 8 years of President Akufo-Addo and the MPP. You can't find any significant or major infrastructure that they were able to complete, even though Ghana could not honor a debt.
But they spend a lot of money on free SHS.
Well, that's what I'm trying to say.
Some interchanges there.
Free SHS, I recognize that investing in education is very important. I recognize. But who borrows from the capital market to fund
but it did the multi-tier interchange on being one.
It started under NDC 1. In fact, when I was the deputy minister, I signed that agreement on behalf of Minister Tepe at the time. It was negotiated in 2015 and began under President Mahama, even before we handed over. But the argument here is we needed to take control of the fiscal. We brought back fiscal discipline, new expenditure discipline. Some of the things we did, we were in 2025, but reset expenditure, nominal levels to 2023. Nominal levels. Immediately, we saw primary expenditure reducing from 18.7% of GDP to 13.5% of GDP. 5 percentage points, 5.5 percentage point of expenditure reduction in one single year. This, however, did not hurt growth. This, however, actually boosts growth. And for the first time, we saw non-oil GDP growth reaching 7.6%, the highest in 14 years. In 14 years. Clearly, this shows something. The waste was the one that we cut. So it was not that we're actually, not giving resources for the development of this country, but we actually identified those waste and we cut them. We again recalibrated Ghana's fiscal regime and also recalibrated the IMF program. We turned it in a way that clearly at the time we could see that the adjustments that were actually introduced by the previous administration were largely revenue-led, and we needed to change it from expenditure-led revenue adjustment instead of revenue-led. Because what we saw was that the revenue-led adjustment was actually hurting Ghanaian businesses and individuals and households. And so immediately we had to. And that brings me to the second point.
Modernizing Ghana's tax regime.
We modernized Ghana's tax regime. The objective at the time was so clear. One, remove all nuisance taxes. And so e-levy, betting tax, VAT on, motor insurance, all of that were removed. We actually reformed the VAT as well. We brought the effective VAT rate from 21.9 to 20%. We removed all the distortions. We, as much as possible, encourage businesses. And in doing so, what we've done is that businesses are able to do well and plow back some of their profit towards the growth of the company. And that is what we did in modernizing Ghana's tax regime. We did all of this without losing tax revenue as a percentage to Ghana's GDP. In fact, the truth is, between 2024 to 2025, Ghana's tax to GDP increased from 12.6% to 13.1%. 0.5% GDP increase, even though we removed those taxes, to lessen the burden for individuals and businesses. Aside, this year, our projection is that tax to GDP will move from 13.1% of GDP to 14.1%.
On account of?
On account of better policies. I tell you, some of the things we've done at Tema Port, for example, customs revenue is back by introducing the Publican AI. In the last 3 months of the implementation of the Publican AI, we have been able to rake in $302 million United States dollars more than we would have. This is far better than the e-levy.
On that question, though, at what cost? The Pelican AI? Because
yes.
I'm pretty sure you've heard the importers complain. There was a protest, and they say a few things, that the assessments that have been done now, because the Pelican AI is almost like a verification tool of the values you're declaring, and that there were some significant errors, the delays, and that was affecting.
I doubt that. I doubt that. And if you have a moment, I will give you a copy of the media review. I have listed cases of what Publican has done. I don't want to mention companies here, but we saw a system that was largely abused because of the fact that we did not have a structure to be able to catch those misclassification and undervaluation and transfer of monies outside the country without bringing the goods. For example, Publican for the first time is able to track for you, Evans, if you are to say you are going to buy a car and you transfer $100,000 from the shores of Ghana in the name of buying the car. And when you bring the car and you are to get invoice to say that, hey, you bought the car at 50,000, Publican is aware that you transferred 100,000.
How is that possible?
Oh yes, because the transfer is linked to the system. It's aware that you've transferred because you have to transfer, and when you are transferring, remember you have to get IDF from the customs system before you transfer the money to import something to the country. And the banks will request the use of IDF, and that IDF will compare the invoice, and we are able to know.
So you're paying duties for the real value.
For the real value of the car, not your value that you think no one knows. So you can bring documentation that depicts something other than what you.
So what do you say to the Gutes of this world and the importers who agitated?
Do you know the interesting thing? Gutes of this world are not, interestingly, the ones that are beating the system.
Okay.
They are the bigger multinationals and some of other companies that, I don't want to mention names, that you'll be surprised to hear that they were the ones rather trying to beat the system.
And the Pelican is now...
The Publican is now able to expose all of them.
Is something going to be happening now?
Obviously now they are paying the right taxes. And as I said, it is not the small importers.
Okay.
They are not the ones employing the sophisticated strategy to be able to bring the things in. No, they are not the ones. It's the bigger fishes that today we are able to address.
And our final one is a complementary fiscal policy.
Most importantly,
inflation
we knew that the central bank alone cannot tame inflation without the fiscal supporting. And the central bank alone cannot ensure exchange rate stability. You recall at my vetting, I said that Central Bank of Ghana alone cannot anchor the currency. And it is also the role of the fiscal. For example, I prepare a budget and Bank of Ghana gives me inflation targeting of, let's say, they target inflation 8 plus or minus 2. If today the inflation is coming on the back of food inflation, what can the central bank do? It's government policy. It's the government of the day's policy. It's not always hiking. It's the government policy that we'll have to employ to be able to deal with the food inflation. If today inflation is coming on the back of the issues we are seeing in the Middle East and prices of fuel is going up, government will be the one that will have to act, not always the central bank. Just like we did before when we introduced that temporary relief to bring the price of fuel down so that inflation does not hit the roof. It was not only the responsibility of the central bank. So for the first time, we amended the Bank of Ghana Act to make inflation targeting a joint responsibility between the Ministry of Finance and the central bank, so that all of us will target inflation. And so if we know that inflation is supposed to be 8%, I know my role. The central bank governor will have to know his role. So that together, the coordination between the monetary authorities and fiscal authorities, together we can work to tame inflation for all of us to be.
Recently, we've seen that inflation is beginning to trend back up. What's happening there?
But I'm not too worried. I'm not too worried because the outlook of inflation doesn't look bad. I think inflation will come back to
8 plus or minus 2?
No.
That's what you had said?
No, that is the target. That is the target. The target is 8 plus minus 2. So it means the lower is 6 and the upper is 10. Today is 5.3. Still lower than NDF 5.4. And it is my hope that we'll end the year with inflation in 5%.
Let's run through the numbers now. The microeconomy, that you say, back the prudence.
Yes.
These three implementation policies that will lead to this.
Yes.
You talked about you've exceeded your targets.
Yes.
Overall real GDP growth of 6.4%
for the first
quarter of 2026. It's well ahead of the 4.8% full year target.
Yes.
Now, the minority did a press conference. Your good friend, Kujopon Nkrumah, addressed it. And it raised a very fundamental point about this. So 6.4, and this is the first quarter on account of gold.
Oh, no.
Because if you look,
let him look into the numbers.
If you look at the statistical service, says gold contributed 10% of the growth. The next one is 7%. In fact, gold and quarrying.
Okay.
And they make the point that, to quote him, this is galamsey growth, galamsey fueled growth. Because back in 2024 April, when they had similar high growth rate, again, large on account of gold, you said the same.
Oh, yes. I don't rather.
Do you admit on the
I disagree.
Gold is 10%.
You see, it's at the time I was making that statement, I recall in 2024, the gold portion was more than it's almost twice the number.
It was. I mean, it's around 14%.
It's about 14%. I don't remember exactly the number, but was certainly more than the 10%.
It was. Just factually, it was. It's around 14%. We'll check that. I have that data.
Exactly.
When we say it, we'll refer back to it. But it's around 14% at the time.
Today, you can see that even though the gold price is high, even though output is high, it is not up to that 14%. It is, let's say, 10%.
It was 10. That's what statistical service.
10%. And you can see that it is broad-based. It is broad-based in the sense that it's 10% of 100. And 10% of 100 indicates that others are equally doing well.
So services
sector
was 7.
Is bouncing back.
But Dr. Forson, if you look at the fact that it's 10% and the services, which has always been carrying the ball.
Let me tell you something.
It tells you a lot, is it not?
Let me tell you something. What Gold Board has done is largely to stop gold that was in the past smuggled out of Ghana. That is significant. It may not necessarily be new gold being produced, but in the past, Ghana had never had a handle on the smuggling of gold out of our country until recently, when we created a monopoly for Gold Board to be the national assayer and buyer of small-scale gold. Today, we are seeing the true value of our gold. In fact, look at the numbers Gold Board has purchased recent and the numbers they purchased during their time. And yet, even that time, gold was 14%, even though we are buying more and stopping the smuggling gold. So clearly you can see that the argument is not founded. This growth that we are seeing is quite broad-based. Yes, I recognize that gold has played a major role, but it is also important for us to equally accept and understand that it is far better than under their time. It is a fact. It is far better than under their time. And services is doing well. But Evans, let me make this point. Beginning of the year, I made mention that Ghana's GDP growth will be at least 4.8%. First quarter, I'm seeing 6.4. I'm very hopeful that the target of at least 4.8% will be achieved and even exceeded. I'm very hopeful that will be exceeded. But be it as it may, I'm very cautious. And so I have, the government has decided that the 4.8% of 4.8% GDP growth, real GDP growth for 2026 must be maintained.
Okay, and you said non-oil real GDP.
But non-oil
is also 6.3.
It's also 6.3.
Doing well in the first quarter of 2026. And another key data, inflation, which we've already talked about.
Falling from 13.7%
to 5.3%, and you've said that you're so more confident that it's in around.
We will. I think we will be in the within the target band. The lower band is 6%,
okay.
8 plus or minus 2. And so even if we are the lower band by the
I think last time you were here, you were confident around 6, ending the year around 6. Okay, and then the primary balance, another key one that had come up for a bit of scrutiny. I mean, and primary balance of 0.9%. We'll talk about that when we sit down to disaggregate it a bit more. But 0.9%, and by the way, primary balance is one of those terms when economists bandy about. The ordinary guys are scratching their head. So I had to go and take my dictionary and find out what that means. Basically, your income versus what you're expending. If you take away, you don't account for your interest. And so if you're doing a surplus, it means you're spending within your means.
Yes.
That basically is what it is.
That's it.
Right? And so you now have even surplus.
Yes. Our target was to do 1.5% of GDP surplus by the end of the year.
Okay. Explain to me what is accounting for this. Is it that the accusation against you is that Ato is not spending? Ato is too stingy.
I can spend only what I have, my brother. If I don't have the resources, I can spend. And let's understand this. The MPP went into an IMF program, signed an agreement with the IMF, and borrowed $3 billion from them, and committed us, this government, that we will do 1.5% of GDP. This was the commitment the MPP made to the IMF, and took the money, of which by the time they were leaving office, they've spent 3/4 of the $3 billion. Now, I have come as Minister of Finance. IMF does not deal with political parties. They deal with government and countries. I have a responsibility to achieve 1.5% of GDP. Are you telling me that I should default on the promises of which government of Ghana has taken a loan from the IMF? Certainly no, I can't do that. I have to make sure that this condition is met. And it is for that reason that IMF is bold enough to go to their board that Ghana has achieved all the conditionalities of which they loaned us, and so Ghana is actually exiting the IMF program. This is a commitment that the people of Ghana and the government of Ghana must fulfill. And I can tell you that I am on course to fulfill this. I've done 0.9, and so by the end of the year, even if you annualize 0.9 times 2, halfway, times 2, it will be 1.8. It means getting to the end of the year, I will have room to be able to spend 0.3% more. And that is what it means. This is a commitment. I did not set the target. It was actually a conditionality under the IMF program, and the government of Ghana cannot do anything.
Do you accept the criticism that it's all because you're not spending?
Oh, no, but do you want me to spend and derail the IMF program? Is that what they want me to do? I think it's a bigger question. It is President Akufo-Addo and his government that took Ghana to IMF and agreed to this conditionality. Unless they want me and President Mahama, because it's President Mahama's budget, to derail the IMF program so that we spend as if there's no tomorrow, crash the economy again, and go back to economic crisis with a haircut.
Yeah, and just another nuance there is that I look at your revenue numbers, because as you say, surplus is all your revenue. What is your earning? As again, what you're spending. I look at your revenue numbers, and you are not hitting your target.
Oh, I think it's
marginal.
Marginal. 0.1%.
But what stands out is a significant drop in the expenditure numbers. That is just in your face.
Okay, so let me show you something. If you look at total expenditure and conclude that we are not spending on the back of that expenditure, you make a mistake. You need to look into the expenditure and understand the component of the expenditure that goes to the primary expenditure, of which you get primary balance from. Because some of the expenditures relate to interest. And so because of the reduction of the exchange rate, the reduction of the T-bill rate, government for the first half of the year alone, we have saved 4.2 billion Ghana cedis on domestic interest for first half of the year.
And T-bill interest rates, the lower it goes, a stronger indication of the economic.
Exactly. And so we have saved pretty much. We have also saved on external interest because of the stability of the currency. And we have paid because, for example, if I want to service, let's say, $1 billion in CDs, a CD equivalent, if the CD is 10, it's 10 times 1 billion. If the CD is 20, it is certainly 20 times 1 billion. So I will end up paying twice. And because of the stability of the currency, I'm saving that kind of money. And so the expenditure component you are talking about, the one that hits you, is actually coming from savings from interest. Interest on the grounds that government has saved money. That money that we have saved, it is not available because the principle is that the IMF target was on 1.5% of primary balance and not overall deficit.
And one more point, I noticed that in the first quarter you did a surplus of 1.2.
Correct.
In the second quarter you're doing 0.9. That's a reduction. What's accounted for?
I think it's, again, interest has, which one?
But the same number. 0.9% of GDP.
I think more revenue came in.
More revenue came
in the second half. And let me say that publican has contributed quite significantly to our revenues, and so you can rely more on your revenues than to borrow. Okay.
Now, borrow, yes. Public debt. What you say to us today is that after the end of June 2026, domestic debt accounted for 54.4% of Ghana total debt, while external debt is 45.6%. But on the 7th of February, you honored the SIT domestic exchange program coupon payment of 10.1 billion, and then 7th DDEP coupon payment. So you're honoring your obligations as far as the debt is concerned. But there's this that I need you to comment on for me. This is, whilst you pay this, there's nothing compared to what you're about to pay. In 2027, you are telling us we're going to be paying 58 billion. And then in the election year of all years, you're going to pay 53 billion. So how are you going to manage this?
Evans, I recall my days at the Minority Secretariat as the minority leader. And I recall when I reviewed these numbers, I was scared. I recall at the time my submission to Parliament is that whoever get the privilege to win the election to serve the people of Ghana, and the one that will become finance minister will have a hurdle.
They didn't know you were going to become
I never knew it was going to be me. Here am I. It is quite scary. We have 58 billion Ghana cedis to pay in 2027 and 53 billion in 2028. And because I've always been aware that this is what is staring at Ghana, I have accordingly prepared for this day.
How?
We prepared what we call MTDS, medium-term debt management strategy. And in the strategy, the focus was how to fix these two humps.
And the total is 111.
And the total is 111. I said it today in Parliament.
Interesting spin on
this is the actual agenda 111. And if there's any agenda 111 that the previous administration left for the people of Ghana, it is this debt. 58 and 53, it's equal to 111. And this is indeed the agenda 111 that the MPP must also be worried about, and they'll have to join us to fix. I think this must be fixed because Ghana cannot afford to.
And your grand plan is to create a sinking fund?
I have.
Or you have already?
We have already created.
How much do you have in it?
As of today, we have 15.6 billion Ghana cedis.
Okay.
By the end of the year, I expect to have a minimum of 30 billion Ghana cedis. That 30 billion will be enough to pay for the February 30 billion. This money is divided into two. 30 billion will be paid in February and 28 billion will be paid in August. So the 30 billion at the minimum will be ready by December, so that by the end of the year, bondholders will be assured that there are 30 billion that will fall due. Government of Ghana is ready to pay. And then the August one, I have December to August. I'll mobilize the 28 billion as well, and I'll also pay that money. Immediately that is done, I'll move to this one. And then we'll make sure that again, by December 2027, 30 billion of the 53 billion cedis will be available and ready for us to pay. So we are going to
getting the money to put in the sinking fund?
Again, so when they tell you that you are not spending, you spend what you have, and you have to build buffers, save for tomorrow. For example, if I spend that 15.6 billion, that is in the sinking fund. December will come, February will be coming. 1 week to the time, I'll be scratching my head because there's no money to pay for it. And so the strategy is simple. We decided to set aside 7% of Ghana's non-oil tax revenue into the sinking fund. Then when we go to auction and there's a bit of excess, you take a bit of that and you put it in the auction, in the sinking fund. Gradually, you build small, city by city, and then we'll build the war chest so that by the time we are ready, this debt will fall due. Government of Ghana will be ready to repay this, and that is exactly what we are doing. Evans, I want to use this platform to assure bondholders, domestic bondholders, that sleep. This 58 billion will be paid by the Republic of Ghana without sweat. We have the mechanism in place. We have already built enough in the single fund. We are going to add to it, have the mechanism, and by December, by the time we are delivering the 2027 budget, I'll be proud to announce to Ghanaians that this money is ready and that bondholders will get their money. And
let's take this and then we'll sit down and then we'll begin to expand on the other issues, including this very fascinating road infrastructure I heard of today for a bridge. Somewhere will be in the Volta or Eastern region.
In the Eastern region.
In the Eastern region. Yeah. We'll talk about that. It seems to be the longest bridge we'll have in Ghana. And the financier says the government is going to fund it. We'll talk about that. But let's quickly talk about the floods, because this came up for quite a bit of controversy.
Yeah.
You updated the country today that 350 million from the contingency fund to finance emergency response interventions has been approved. Approved is quite different from actually released. Where are we with the actual release of the fund?
So let me put it this way. There are two contingency funds available, or contingency money. Let me put it this way, contingency money for the Republic of Ghana. One is a creation of the Constitution. Article 1771 of the Constitution. It's a creation of the Constitution. And it is the only emergency fund the Constitution created for the Republic of Ghana. Now, that fund is under the control of the Finance Committee of Parliament. And so when you create that money and you pay into that money, when there's an emergency, you have to go to the Finance Committee as Minister of Finance to get approval before you can take money from that contingency fund. We have 500 million Ghana cedis in that account. It's a permanent account at the Bank of Ghana, and it is there. You go in when there's emergency, subject to the approval of Parliament, and then you can go and take it. Then we have another contingency money called the contingency votes. That it is for the Minister of Finance to manage. It's within the appropriation every year, and you wiggle your way within it. Sometimes you allocate some of this money, reallocate some to other ministries that obviously you have to spend additional to be able to carry. Because as Minister of Finance, you should be able to have emergency money as and when. Because you can't prepare a budget for the year without anticipating that something unforeseen, for example, may have happened or will happen. And so the contingency vote has 361 million in that account. That is for the control of the Minister of Finance, and you inform Parliament how you use it. Now, when the unfortunate incident happened, His Excellency the President directed that I should go to Parliament and ask Parliament to release 350 million Ghana cedis for disaster mitigation and flood mitigation. Now, I went to Parliament, and the Finance Committee of Parliament did approve it, gave me a letter that I can access that money to be paid into the Disaster Management Committee's account to fix the situation that we found ourselves, the flooding. Unfortunately, when I got that approval and instructed the Controller and Accountant General to transfer same to the Disaster Management Committee, we found out that the account, the constitutional fund, the only emergency fund that this republic has been garnished by a High Court order. Simple put, you can't access that money. I don't know how
did this happen and why?
I don't know how it happened, but I protested and I said, hang on a second, are you telling me that the only constitutional emergency fund set aside for the country, for all of us, so that if there's an emergency, government can access that resources to fix it, has been garnished. And who did that? But well,
did you know the answer to that question?
I think the Attorney General will be the right person to answer to that question.
Did this happen under your watch?
I don't have the full details, but to be honest, I know the Attorney General has taken steps to quash that garnishee. But in the meantime, I think this issue brings to question the need for us to have a legislation to define what can be garnished and what cannot be garnished, because it is becoming one too many. I'm more interested in what is ahead of us. The time will come. The time will come. From what I've seen, even the consolidated fund can be garnished. And so from what I'm seeing, if we don't regulate these garnishee orders through an act of parliament, I'm sure it will be out of order.
But the challenge is that
let me say, it was for emergency response and it was garnished. So, as Minister of Finance, I had 361 million Ghana cedis in the contingency vote. Parliament and the request from His Excellency the President was to release 350. It is more than enough. And so I made money available, not from the contingency fund, the Parliament-controlled contingency fund, but from the Minister of Finance's controlled contingency vote.
How much from there?
And then I gave 350 million to
same amount as
it was done.
So has that been released?
It has been released that same day. I did that.
Okay.
And you can see that they are working.
They're working.
Yes.
So they should have received. The victim should have been received.
Oh, I'm sure. I am not in a good position to give you a brief of the work that is being done. It is under the chairmanship of the Minister for Interior, and I'm sure at the right time he will brief the public how this resources has been.
We're going to take a break. When we come, we'll take a seat. There are big issues still to talk about. We'll talk about the big push tonight, under which we will talk about the Adoso Echi Amanfo Bridge, which is a new one I'm hearing today, and because of the grandness of it, we'll look at it and where the minister is finding the funding for it. And then we'll break down some of the various ministries and the projects that the finance minister says he's funding. Because of the fundamental criticism that the government is simply not spending, that is why you're seeing all these fantastic surplus numbers. The finance minister today brought evidence of spending in areas that affect your life. The finance minister presented the mid-year budget review to the House, and I'm delighted that he is my guest in the studio, breaking down the big issues that emerged today that he himself put before the country. He's running an account of the last 6 months, and he's telling us also what to expect going forward. We're going to be looking at the last 6 months as it relates to what he spent our money on and whether they were justified or not. And as you know, PMS is always brought to you by Syntax Tanks, also brought to you by Pepsodent Cavity Fighter Toothpaste and Stanbic CIB. Dr. Keseya Forson is still my guest and is in the studio with me. And let's do something, because when we're standing there, an issue that I raised was the growth rate of 6.4 for this first half of the year was a big issue. The minority had questioned the disaggregation, and that if you look at that, it boils down largely to gold's contribution. And they refer him to 2024 April, first quarter, when he was in a position then as a minority leader and had raised a similar issue with their growth rate at the time, when gold also played a significant role, and had said it was growth fueled by galamsey. Well, if you look at the numbers at the time we stood, we wanted to recall the numbers. I had the numbers. I knew that the gold's contribution to the growth rate that the finance minister talked about today was 10%. To be very specific, according to the Statistical Service, mining and quarrying is actually what the term is 10.7% as far as this first quarter is concerned. In the first quarter of 2024, it was 12.9%. 6.8%. That's when he had said that it was growth fueled by Galamsey. So that the Forson, these are the numbers.
Yeah, but there's something I needed to ask. You recall last 2024 first quarter, even though the gold at the time was recorded as 12.8% as a composition of the growth we saw at the time, it was also obvious that they were not able to capture all the growth because at the time, smuggling was quite endemic and it was quite pervasive. And that is the main reason why some of us included in our manifesto the establishment of the Ghana Gold Board. And so even the 12% was not the actual gold purchase or produce in the country at the time. And if they had captured the full gold at the time, I'm sure the numbers would be mind-boggling. Even 12% is certainly more than the 10% today.
Okay, so that's just to clarify that factually on that subject. Let's talk about what you've spent our money on.
Okay.
In the last 6 months, and there's a whole bouquet of issues there about whether you're spending or whether you're not, whether you're meeting your own expenditure targets, whether you are under executing the budget. Those are big questions that we'll ask. But let's look at some of the line items. You see behind me the specifics as the finance minister presented. I want to isolate some of the big ones, and I want to isolate the big push. Because the big push, obviously, is government flagship infrastructure project. In fact, there's a line item that should take the bulk, the majority of all government spending. Exactly. So let's isolate that. You update us that half year you have paid, and that's the word, paid 6.5 billion
Ghana cedis.
What did you spend the money on?
Okay, it's based on certificates that has come to us. And we process all certificate that comes to us. And it goes to controller and we pay. This is based on work done by contractors. And so if you are to bring your certificate, since we are budgeted for, and the Ministry of Roads certifies that certificate and it comes to us, we honor our obligation.
So that's where the 6.5 billion comes from. Because I looked at the numbers again. You had projected this year to spend 30 billion on the big push.
Correct.
6.5, it's 21.6% of what you project to spend this year. Correct. That leaves you some 23.5 billion
cedis.
That clearly is the spending.
No, first of all, let me make the point that we are not accumulating arrests on big push. Today, as we speak, I don't know of a contractor who has generated a certificate in the last, let's say, 1 month that has not been paid, unless it has not gotten to me. All certificate for big push has been processed and paid for. And so until certificate comes to you, you cannot spend on it. Remember, they are working, and it takes a while. So they will have to generate certificate based on work done before you can pay. And so it's not failure to spend, but we will spend as and when the certificate comes. And the money is for big push and not for something else.
Are the big push contractors owed?
No. As we speak, no. So the Minister for Road will confirm this.
So the 6.5 is the bill you have received.
The bill I have received, verified, and paid for.
Okay. So if there's anybody out there who hasn't been paid, it means you haven't received the bill.
I've not received it because it goes through process. It has to, first of all, if it's an urban road, big push, it has to go through urban roads. They have to verify it. It goes to their ministry. Their ministry verifies it, and it comes to me for processes and payment.
But aren't you concerned, though, that considering that you're half year, you plan to spend 30 billion, you've already only spent 6.5, 21.6%?
I'm not concerned in the sense that because the roads, some of them were awarded later, I expect that in the third quarter and the fourth quarter, of which we are about beginning the third quarter, I will be receiving a lot more certificate of which I have to plan and pay. And so, remember, this is road construction. Somebody will have to work. It takes a while to work. You work, you bring certificate, we pay you. And that is only for big push. And I cannot use that money for something else. And I can only spend it on big push project of which Parliament has approved. And so until I get that certificate, that money must be ring-fenced for big push only.
And you told us today that a certain percentage of the big push project...
Yes. I mean, from the numbers we have seen, we've seen that we are making some significant progress on the big push. For example, if you take the Accra-Kumasi Expressway, the Ghana Army has cleared 176 kilometers of the road. We expect that by the first week of September, they will finish clearing the entire corridor. Then, of course, the Ministry of Roads and Highways will begin the award of contract. And when the contract is awarded, the contractor will move to site. I can also confidently say that so far, we have set aside 1.7 billion Ghana cedis for Accra-Kumasi Expressway.
Okay.
And that amount is at the bank.
And you said you ring-fenced it.
Yes.
And that I thought was fascinating. So you have a project you haven't actually commissioned yet, because today you said the president might, because you haven't commissioned yet.
Exactly.
And yet you are ring-fencing money that you possibly could be using to do other things that are immediate concern.
Look, unless you don't want us to finish this project is so important that you need to de-risk it. First, you need to clear the corridor, and two, you need to set aside the resources. This will be the first time that we are beginning to build a major national infrastructure where money will be available. And I can say with certainty that by the time His Excellency the President will be cutting the sword, the entire resources that will require for the construction of that.
Do you know how much now? The last time you were here, you were still doing the evaluation analysis.
I think so far, the road minister tells me that they have finished the survey, they've done the feasibility, and they're submitting the final designs to him this month, end of this month. He has an idea what the engineer's estimate is, but because it's going to go to tender, I don't think it's prudent for me to sit on national television and announce it. I will go ahead of the program. But I think the engineer's estimate is there, and they know exactly what the engineer's views are.
They return to the main accusation that you had to respond to, which is that you're not spending.
Yes.
You tell us in the budget.
So I've been telling you that, what we spent.
Public sector employee compensation.
You know, we spent 48.8 billion Ghana.
You know, when I heard that, I said, but you don't have a choice in the matter.
But am I going to accumulate arrests? I have to pay, and I can only pay from the revenue that I receive. And you need to spend it from the revenue that you receive, and exactly what I've done. 48.8 billion cedis. Of this 48 billion, 4 billion of the amount went to SNIT and Tier 2 pension scheme. Interest. Yes, I also don't have a choice. I have to service my interest. But we've lived in this country before. We saw someone defaulting on the payment of interest and even coupons. And so you have a choice to also default, but I will not default, and President Mahama will not default. We spent 21.5 billion Ghana cedis on interest payment. Eurobond debt service and interest is $700 million that we have paid. Domestic bondholders, we've paid 10 billion in coupon. District Assembly's Common Fund, just to ensure that we deepen decentralization. We have fiscal decentralization. We have sent 4.4 billion Ghana cedis to this Assembly Common Fund, so that it can spur local economic growth. On the national health insurance, we've spent 4.5 billion Ghana cedis. January to June, we spent 4.4 billion Ghana cedis. I will take you to the next one.
You have Mama Cares.
Mama Cares, 1.1 billion. Ghana Education Trust Fund, 4.2 billion. Free Secondary Education Program, 1.8 billion. Road Maintenance Trust Fund, 1.7 billion. Youth Employment Agency, 459 million. Ghana National Petroleum Corporation, we spent 961 million Ghana. And
I know you raised a concern that you want them to keep the money, you use the money for what they are called purposes.
Exactly.
Similar to what you want to do with Gold Board.
Exactly.
Are you getting value for money from them?
I think they've started improving the quality of their expenditure.
Okay.
And you remember they used to get 30%. And I took 5% of it, 25%, but that is happening.
Okay.
The Mineral Development Fund, we've sent them 458 million Ghana cedis.
Energy sector
shortfall. We spent 7.1 billion Ghana cedis.
Do you owe IPPs?
Yes, we owe IPPs. The second quarter one, with the first payment for this year has been sent to controller for payment. I know some of them have received their payment. The 7.1 billion has to do with the gas we buy from ENI and NGAS, Nigeria Gas. and also from Talo. We've spent 7.1 billion Ghana cedis to keep the lights on. Clearing legacy government arrests. The contractors that the previous administration owe before they left office, this first 6 months have spent 5.3 billion Ghana cedis on them. And then free compulsory basic capitation grant. We spent 76
million. I checked your fiscal data for first quarter, and the value there was zero.
Okay, so some of the payment moved into, between the first week of July. And so you notice that when I mentioned, I said to date, how much we have paid. So you will not see all of them because of the cutoff. You will not see all the payment, that some of the payment that hit, let's say 2nd of July or 3rd of July. But because I'm presenting the media today, I need to account how much money I have spent. And so this payment, you see that even though the fiscal data, you will see January to June, but this payment actually hit them maybe 2nd, 3rd, or 5th of July. And you can't put in the fiscal data because it's time.
So it doesn't mean that the first quarter you gave them zero?
It may be that first quarter.
But when I saw the question, I wanted to ask you is that means that, how did they, this is our children.
Yes, but the request must come.
You didn't get a request.
So if I don't get a request
in the whole of first quarter.
Yeah, but normally you don't pay it quarterly. Maybe you pay it half yearly.
Okay.
So it's not all the requests that we pay quarterly. Remember, it's also subject to cash flows. And first quarter revenue isn't that great. Normally second quarter I start picking up, third quarter I pick up, and it booms in the last quarter. So there are a bit of seasonalities in the payment of government obligations.
In LEAP, you pay 485 million. This is all going to the vulnerable.
Exactly.
And in school feeding too, you had...
we spent 877 million.
Also, I saw a zero to it in the first quarter.
Yes, but we have accelerated.
Okay, and then the BC over tuition fees, you pay that of 46 million. And no fee stress, another policy that you introduced, you again cleared it.
We've paid 537 million.
You credited the account.
Yes.
The teacher training, one controversial one, you pay
4 million.
Okay, nursing training too.
And that's for first quarter.
So you don't owe any arrears in this area?
If there may be arrears, it may be 1 or 2 months.
Yeah.
That, again, it goes through, the request must come from NCT, National Council for Tertiary Education.
Okay.
It has to come to controller, through their ministry to controller, and then the processes will be done.
Okay, good. And I see that you have assembly members paid, National Apprenticeship Program also paid 54 million. That's a lot of money. Even assemblies, 93 million.
Yes.
Okay. FIFA, we know already we were knocked out of the... I know you love football.
But they did well anyway. I think they did better than most of us anticipated.
Okay. I beg to differ. Integrated recycling compost plant. You've given 477 there. Now, national buffer stock. Very, very important. 1.1 billion.
Not only for buffer stock, it's for
fertilizer,
fertilizer, all of
Feed
them.
Ghana, irrigation infrastructure.
Everything, buffer stocks had to get money to be able to buy. So 200 million, they will have to use it to buy some mop up some of the excess food in the market, store and release later.
Okay.
Many others.
And then we have farmer service centers.
Yes. So farmer service center, what we have done is that because we are buying the equipment, you need to establish letters of credit for those equipment. You can't pay before they ship. And the best way to do it is to use documentary letters of credit. And so the ministry has engaged a supplier. And our responsibility is to open an escrow account and pay the money in, so that the ministry will use that money to establish the LC for the goods to come, for them to clear, and the person will get their money.
Now,
and so our job is to transfer the 551 million into the escrow account. So this money, it is in an escrow account at the central bank.
There's some reconciliation we need to do about this, because when I add 1.1 billion to 551, I get 1.6 billion thereabouts. And that corresponds to what your deputy minister said
let me
had been given to the agric minister.
Let me use clarify something. My deputy minister's pronouncement relates to releases.
Yes.
Releases are different from payment.
Okay.
For example, you may have goods and services release of, say, 300 million. At the Ministry of Finance, I will have to release it to a sector ministry. The sector ministry will have to go through the process of accessing the money through the GIFMIS platform. It involves the loading of invoices and others and availability of cash before it tends to become payment. So oftentimes the nomenclature in the description is very different if you use payment as the same as releases. My description here relates to what they have received. Cash. It is different from what we have released. Payment is transfer from the consolidated fund of the Republic of Ghana. So the consolidated fund, I may give you a release letter, but that release letter may not have turned to cash yet. You need to go through some process before it becomes cash. And so oftentimes when I hear people confuse the two, cash is only what the controller has paid out of the consolidated fund of the Republic of Ghana. Then it becomes cash. What I reported relates to cash and not releases. Cash paid as at today that I presented the media to Parliament. It's what I gave.
And so then, again for clarity, because this was a controversial subject, yes. Does that mean then that the Finance Ministry was right when they said that as of 29th May 2026, they had only received 244 million, which is just 12% of what they were entitled, which I believe was 1.9 billion?
Okay, so let me put it this way. In terms of releases and cash, there are a lot of things that goes through before you turn releases to cash. That is not the responsibility of the Ministry of Finance. It is the responsibility of the sector ministry. You, for example, if you want to, let me give a typical example. If you want to, let's say, attend some conferences, and it is part of your goods and services, and you request the Ministry of Finance to release to you, you will have to upload the invoices and others on the system for the approval of the Controller and Accountant General before you get paid. Until that activity happens, and for you to load the invoices on it, the service, the money will not come and it has nothing.
Although you have released it?
Although we have released it. That is the process.
Okay.
That is the process. And so if you listen to the Deputy Minister carefully, he used the word allotment and releases. Allotment and releases, and never said cash or payment made.
And cash or payment made depends on your going through the process.
You have to go through process.
So if we haven't submitted the...
If you don't, for example, I can release the fourth quarter, the second and fourth quarter goods and service to Parliament. It is the responsibility of Parliament to undertake the activity, upload it on the service and assess the cash.
Okay.
The money will not be transferred to you in bulk if you have not performed the function or the activity is yet to be performed.
So there was some misunderstanding.
Exactly. I think it's about the nomenclature that was used, and also lack of understanding. It's not everybody that understands the terminologies the Ministry of Finance and other technical people use. For example, I will go to a Greek ministry and it will be very difficult for me to understand their botanical names and some of the technical jargons they use there. In the same vein, I expect that another ministry will not also understand all the technical jargons
So whereas they were interpreting cash,
yes.
So when they said they had not received money, they were saying they had not received it.
Exactly.
But you had said that it's simply been released.
It's been released, and it is your responsibility to access the
So the 244 million they had as of 29th May is what they had actually managed to access.
Maybe. But I've not gone to, reconcile the numbers for me to boldly say that this is exactly how much they have.
But you're confirming that as at the time your deputy spoke, indeed you had released one.
Yes. That was released. We have released and allotted that kind of money. But it is certainly different from cash that has been accessed.
And as of today,
yes.
Now they have cash.
What I'm talking about is cash
of this amount.
Made up to payment we've made to irrigation, infrastructure, Feed Ghana, seed distribution, fertilizer, Ghana buffer stocks, all put together. What we are talking about is nothing but cash. These are not releases.
And I wonder how, when this whole thing was going, there was back and forth.
And so let me explain. it is difficult for you to reconcile or compare payment to releases based on the explanation I've given to you.
Yeah.
The two are not the same. The two are not the same. We are saying two different things. Yeah. One is talking about releases, and one is saying how much I have.
So the Greek ministry misunderstood what the finance ministry was saying.
I think it's more about misunderstanding.
Have you resolved with your colleague?
No, there's no issue. It is not an issue at all. We have since had a discussion around it.
You've spoken to him?
All of us. Oh, yes. See, honestly, the Minister for Agriculture visited us to explain his side. We did also explain our side. There's no issue at all. I think
that's been resolved.
Yeah, it is not.
So this was to show us that you are spending, and the accusation is true.
I think it is an interesting narrative that gradually people are saying that we are not spending enough, blah, blah. But hey, Evans, I can only spend what I have. I can't spend beyond the means of government. I prepare a budget. I receive revenue. There are seasonalities in the revenue that will come. First quarter revenue is not the same as the second quarter revenue. Some of the expenditure is such that you cannot default on them, like wages and salaries. It hits you first, you have to pay. Security service, you have to pay. Teachers, you have to pay. Nurses, you have to pay. Lecturers, all of that, automatic, you have to pay. Beyond that, you have interest, you have to pay. And that will fall due, coupons, amortization. You just have to pay. You have no choice. Then you have government services, goods and services. You have to pay. You make sure you have to get government to be running. Then you have capital expenditure to also pay. And so you balance it in the course of the year. There are times you are able to pay quick. There are times you have obligations coming up. For example, on the 18th of August, I have 10.8 billion Ghana cedis to pay in DDEP, interest and coupon. I cannot afford to default. I have to make sure that is paid. Beyond that, you have wages and salaries in the end of July to pay. As soon as you finish wages and salaries, your first thing you have to be thinking about is how to pay that 10.8 billion cedis. But after paying that, you don't have any major maturity from August to December. Reason is that you have successfully paid the Eurobond due this year, $1.4 billion. You have successfully paid DDEP due this year, $20 billion cedis. So from the second half of the year after August, you are light on major coupon payment. And so you can switch and spend a little bit more on other government services like CAPES, goods and service, and other things. So there are seasonalities in some of these things. It is not easy sharing money. It is not easy. But first and first, you have to make sure you do it right.
And talking about another one that came up still around this, and again you got a lot of flack for, was a Garrett.
Yes.
Garrett project for the flats.
Yes.
The World Bank report says that fiscal measures severely constrained, and I'm choosing my words carefully because he didn't say delayed. It's a severely constrained the execution of the project.
Yes.
What was your response to that?
I talk about this Garrett project with a bit of pain, and with how public money has been used, and most importantly, how loans that you repay has been used.
Garrett is a loan.
Garrett is a loan. It is not free money. It is indeed a loan. It is a loan that is not even concessional. It is a commercial loan because it doesn't meet the minimum concessionality. In the past, loans has been abused in this country. When we borrow for workshops, when we borrow to travel, when we borrow just to buy Land Cruisers and others, consultancy services and all. It hurts me to the extent that when you borrow money of that magnitude and in the name of a major project and ends up to use less than 50% of the said amount for the project in which you borrowed for. When the time comes for you to repay the loan, it hurts to pay the loan. Why should I be borrowing and be spending on conferences at Aqua Safari, on
Is that what the Gary Buddy?
That is what it was. That was
mitigation.
That's it. That is how it was used for. And I think I don't have my bank here. I would have shown you some of the things they used the money for, the details of what this money was used for. So when we took office, we flagged the usage, and I've been seeing requests for drawdown, and I asked, what have they been using this money for? And then they are saying that give us money for this, give us money for this. So I asked, what is this project designed for? And clearly, they were spending on things that was not fixing the drains.
When you say they, you mean the previous government?
Yeah, the previous government was not spending money on, and that is how the program was designed. So I wrote to the World Bank and said that we need to repurpose some of this loan that has been contracted. I see the deficiency is not, let me put it, the deficiency of, or the structure of the loan and what was designed for, I'm not very comfortable with it. And so I want to reduce some of the soft, I call them soft things, and then transfer them.
Soft as in, that doesn't go directly.
It doesn't
mitigating flood.
Mitigating flood, and move it there. And so the World Bank responded and began the process to work with me. So most of these World Bank loans, we have repurposed them. It's not only Garrett. There were some of the loans that we were taking and were giving to. We take the loan from the World Bank, commercial loan, and we give it to people in a form of grant. That was what the previous government was doing. Some of them. I've stopped all of that. I said it can't happen. Not a country that has just defaulted in the payment of its debt.
But did that delay the disbursement?
And so it did not. It did not. So I said I will only give commitment authorization for the project itself. And so they requested for commitment authorization after the restructuring, and then we granted it. In the first place, as we speak, and at the time we heard those comments, I can confirm to you that there was not even a single request for payment from the Ministry of Finance to the Ministry of Finance, of which we have not.
From the project implementers?
From the project implementers. Work done. No, nothing.
They are not asked you?
No.
Although we know the flag was coming?
Nothing. There was no request for payment. In authority. I mean, I'm saying this on authority. No single request for payment before ministry.
To release the Garrett funds?
To release the fund, no.
So after the time the flood happened,
there was nothing before us. Nothing before us. And so I think a lot has gone wrong in the past. But if you may forgive me, this is a project that is under the Works and Housing Ministry. Correct.
And the Works and Housing Minister is your colleague in cabinet.
Oh yes. I mean, it is not him. It is, you have a project implementation team. We inherited it. We inherited the project, and the project. You remember, this project has been there for years.
Yes.
And how the money has been
2018 and then 2019.
It's been there. And so you ask yourself, we are in 2026. And if the project began, let's say 2018,
but it was supposed to have ended before you took
it should have by now. If it would have made impact, the impact would have been there already. The reason why it wasn't making the impact was that the money was not used for the purpose in which the loan was taken for.
And another thing on this matter of revenue versus expenditure, I see in your review today that you give us an update on your revenue as against the actual and the target.
Yes.
And it all was in percentages.
Yes.
And the question has been asked, why is the finance minister not giving us the actuals? And
the actuals.
The minority accuse you of trying to hide.
Oh, no. It's in the appendices. I will pick mine and go through the appendices. If you have the budget, we can.
No, I don't have the actual.
I don't have. I would go through the appendices. See, the budget, the media review already. I had to read about 90-something pages, 98 pages, and so as much as possible, you have to abridge it. Instead of quoting all this number 100 billion, 101, to there. So if you quote it as a percentage of GDP, it's very easy for you. And the details are in the appendices. How can you hide from?
On that final point, the Minority Act says that when you look at the first quarter numbers, they say they agree with the analysts who say, quote, and this is Kojo Ponkruma, by the way.
First quarter. I'm giving you first. So why you run away from first quarter?
No, they still say that with this quarter, with this first half, the half year accounting you've done, it still shows that you're significantly under executing your budget.
You see, what do you expect? This is a government during their time, 8 years. They were used to reckless spending. And so he is used to over expenditure. Finance minister who just signed checks, borrow left, right, everywhere, and spend, even if you don't have money. So that's what you should expect from them. They are interested in nothing but reckless borrowing and reckless expenditure. This government is not going that way. This is a disciplined government. This is a government that is spending on the right things. You recall that during their time, they were just spending and failing to pay National Health Insurance, Ghana Education Trust Fund, District Assembly Common Fund. So they were spending on the wrong things and leaving the right things. National Health Insurance was always crying. Providers were always in the news. School feeding were saying they were not being paid. Get Fund were not being paid. And all of that. Today, it has changed. Today it has changed. We are spending money on the right things, and development is also happening at the same time. I don't know what they want us to do. They want us to borrow more, even though you are not getting revenue. Borrow and borrow and borrow and spend until there's no tomorrow. And is that what they want us to do?
One of the things you're spending your money on, this is one we learned today about the Adolso Bridge. And I want us to show that because this is the first time I'm hearing about it, and it found its way into the longest bridge to be constructed yet. This is the roads minister himself giving us a recount on what this will look like.
This is apparently going to be the longest bridge in Ghana. 3.5 kilometers. 3.5 kilometers bridge is a big one. And it is going to unlock the potential of our Front Prince.
So this is the Front Place?
Yes. In fact, if you ask me, it is the most important or significant economic bridge in this country. I don't know why, for years, Ghana has failed to address this. The Front Prince is Ghana's breadbasket. This will unlock agriculture in the enclave. It will attract private investment. This is the only land in the country with the vast nature and the kind of water bodies there. You can attract commercial farming with proper irrigation. The land there can do aquaculture, and you can also use it for irrigation. With the size of the land there, it can solve minimum the food security issues in southern Ghana. That can be done. The northern region, upper east, upper west, northeast also, and even Savannah hold another key. But this is one of them. And I think...
How much are you spending on it?
I think, I don't remember offhand, but it's about, in dollar equivalent, $300 million equivalent. About 3.6 billion. I don't remember the exact amount offhand. I'm sure the Minister for Road will be the right person to give you the details. But beyond the potential, agriculture potential, it is one part of Ghana that has been cut off from the national road network for centuries. And people there rely on ferries to cross. Can you imagine traveling on 3.6 kilometer river, day in, day out? It's like a complete cutoff. It is an important road, important bridge.
Do you have the funds for it already?
Oh yes, we've budgeted for under the big push, and the contractors, apparently they are on site and they are working on it.
Are you ring-fencing this?
I think, no, it's part of the big push. When they bring the certificate, we'll pay. Our hope is that this bridge will be completed by 2028, end of 2028. and the road minister tells me that the design and the structure in terms of the methodology they are using to build this road, he's confident that the contractor will finish this
on time. And let's end with two things I didn't hear. 24-hour economy.
Yes.
In the 2026 budget, you had allocated 110 million.
Yes.
Yet in today's media review, I didn't hear anything.
Okay. Why? So you mean how much we spent on them?
You get an update.
Okay. It is in the, again, I tried to.
Why didn't you mention it?
It was a bit, again, the speech was getting a bit too much for me to. Remember, this is just a media review.
But this is your flagship.
Yes. I think it is in the document. The full document is there. I've given updates, how much money they have mobilized, how much they are working on, incentive package that we are working on. Everything is in the.
When I pick the full document, I'll see the update.
If you pick the full document, you will see under the policy initiative section is the first one.
Okay, but on top of that, can you tell me, out of the 110 million you budgeted, how much you actually release, how much of an excess in cash?
It will be difficult for me to give you precise numbers, but in terms of budget execution, we're on course. Remember, the money we allocated for them is for the secretariat to function in terms of wages and salaries of the secretariat, their goods and services, and all. And so it's not something that is delaying. You have to certainly pay somebody's wages and salaries. You have to certainly give them goods and service for them to run the activities of the secretariat. And so that I can assure you that we are releasing it.
What do you say to the criticism from the minority today that the only reason they didn't find space in what you read before the House is because the 24-hour economic program has collapsed?
I think it is a bit of lack of understanding on the part of the minority to appreciate what the 24-hour economic policy stands for. 24-hour economy is a private sector-led transformation of Ghana's economy. It is not all about just opening chop bars and restaurants and fuel stations. It's more than that. It is more of identifying major transformational policies and creating enclaves that can turn around this economy. For example, we mentioned the Afram River, the Afram Plains. By building that bridge alone, the 24-hour economies program, Grow 24, using the Volta Enclave as the agro-processing zone, is going to materialize because they are bringing investment into that enclave for them to work all year round, from agriculture to processing, from processing to export and all. So it actualizes the program. The Honorable, the Venerable Guzitano has been going round to explain the rationale behind the 24-hour economy. And I think we need to do a lot more work to educate Ghanaians on the details of 24-hour economy. But it is not just opening shops for 24 hours.
And
it's more than that.
Second one I didn't hear is in Kukon Kitten. That was also a big one.
Yes.
244 million you budgeted for in 2026.
Yes.
I didn't hear about it.
I think it's all part of the Ministry of Agriculture's release, the total release. We released
the 1.1 billion.
Yes, we released their money to them. It's the program under the ministry, and the ministry will spend from there. We don't go micromanaging ministries to tell them what they can spend their money on and that. They present their budget and we release it to them as and when they go through the system to access it.
And the final thing, when you heard that some of the day-old chickens have been consumed by the people who were benefiting, were you worried? The money is being wasted? You're not going to get value for money at the end?
So I took it quite literally. I mean, the fact that one person or two have sent a picture to the minister to say that we've consumed it does not mean everybody else has consumed it. And I think it is something that we need to clarify. The program is an excellent initiative, and we should not, bring it down on the back that somebody has sent a picture to a minister to say that he or she has consumed what he was given. clearly, you don't expect that all the beneficiaries of the program are business-minded and that they would like to have the chicken, sell it, and restock and build it. Some may not be business-minded, but I believe vast majority of the people will be business-minded. And so it will be very wrong on our part to use that statement from the minister to judge the program. I have some people, even within my constituency, who happens to be beneficiaries of this program. And I can confirm on your show that it is working well for them. And the people that are beneficiaries of the Nkokwa Nketenkete program are using it to improve their livelihood, and it's working well for them. But I can also understand that, obviously, you won't get everybody to have that kind of mentality. And so if you have a program, for example, if you have a success rate of even 70%, then obviously you can say the program has been quite successful. I have not seen a program that is 100% success. There are times that you can have programs that you lose 10, 20%. But hey, as time goes on, the learning will come, people will appreciate it and all. And so I want to use this opportunity to clear the doubt. Most people have heard people talk about the fact that some of the chicken has been consumed. It was something that the minister never said that all the chicken has been consumed. He said some of the people have sent pictures to him. I mean, I don't think all the beneficiaries will have the minister's picture and telephone number to be able to send. I'm sure those that he knows or he's free with are those who probably send him that information. But as I've said to you, I can attest to the fact that that program has been a success in my own backyard.
And just final thoughts. I know for you, the real economy is all you thrive on.
Yes.
You said the pace, First Minister to be going to the markets, etc. What is the single most important thing you want that real market representative out there, the people you interacted with in the marketplace, to know about this mid-year review? Speak to them, speak their language.
Evans, we've come far. This country has gone through some very, very difficult times. I call it very turbulent times. It has been tough. 2022, 2023, 2024. It was tough. There are times that the ordinary Ghanaian struggle to have even 1 square meal. And in 2022, I recall, you drive on the streets of Accra and you get people shouting that things are not well. At a point, when I became minority leader, I was even scared that if care is not taken, we'll lose the democracy. Because the ordinary Ghanaian had lost hope. And it was really, really tough for us. But I'm proud to say that when President Mahama took office in 2025, we, working under him, and the President directed that clearly we have to do everything possible to salvage the situation. We took some tough decisions. The status quo could have been that, hey, continue where MPP left it. Spend. That's what they are calling on us to do, because they want us also to fail. So spend. Go borrow, spend as if there's no tomorrow. Yes, as I said, a true measure of a finance minister is not how much he spent. It's how well he protects the resources entrusted to him. And so it's not about spending. It's about making sure that the foundation for a proper takeoff is in place. The currency was running, depreciating day in, day out. And this is a country that relies so much on import. And it's obviously affected the purchasing power of Ghanaians, inflation and all. And prices of goods and services were running. So people were finding it difficult even to buy some basic necessities, We've overcome that. Today there's stability. Inflation is down. Currency is stable. We've seen interest rates falling. When I took office, became Minister of Finance, we were borrowing 91 days at 29.7. Today, 91 days is at 5.3. Government is borrowing less, and we are also borrowing cheaply. Businesses were struggling to go to the banks to borrow. In fact, when we took office, businesses were borrowing in 35% and all. Today, I know companies that are borrowing at 12, 15%. Less than half of what they used to do. I mean, a lot has improved. These are national gains that calls on all of us to protect it. And I made a point today at Parliament and said that the time has come for us to internalize the cost of economic mismanagement. And for all of us to come together and make sure that this does not happen again. We have to do that. And to everyone listening to me, there was a time that Ghana, our country, could not even borrow long term on our own currency, in our own currency. Can you imagine? We can't issue domestic bonds 5 years, 7 years long term. We can't. This is what economists call the original sin. The previous administration, MPP, brought the original sin. For the first time in Ghana's history, we couldn't borrow long term. And that existed for 3 years. Today we have removed the original sin. We have overcome it completely. Ghana can issue long-term bond in our own currency for our own development. That is significant. And so I want to say to everyone out there that we've come far. You've sacrificed. We have all sacrificed. We need to protect the gains we have made and use that as the platform to take off. We've paid the price for stabilization. It wasn't only paid by government. You did. Everyone else played a role. Now we've gotten to a stage that we can build on. The 2027 budget, I'm going to announce a new policy called the New Economy.
The New Economy.
The New Economy. And post-recovery, we used first 2 years, and I've always known that we will need that 2 years of hard decision to turn around this economy. We have. I don't want to celebrate too early. I want to wait till the end of the year and launch the New Economy for 2027. And I've already said that the primary surplus of 1.5% of GDP, I'm going to bring it down to 0.5% of GDP. So simple put, I'm going to relax the adjustment by 1 percentage point of GDP. It means you have 1% more to spend on the new economy. We are going to target the real sector of this economy.
Market women who you've met, those who actually...
For growth. Yeah. For young people and for growth. And I don't want to read the 2027 budget ahead of time, but I can assure you that we will focus on the people and turn around this economy at scale and transform it. Okay. That is the vision of His Excellency President Mahama, and that is my job to assist him deliver.
That is the finance minister, and if you're wondering what the 2027 will look like, he just dropped a big hint there, a scoop indeed. Look out for the new economy. I'm grateful. Thank you very much. Forson, Dr. Forson, the finance minister, has been my guest.